Hi everyone, how is everyone doing? I hope everyone is having a good day so far. I wanted to make this video because I have something on my heart that, I think that maybe quite a few people can relate to it. And so I really hope that, this is something that comes across as helpful to those of you who are listening to it. So the topic or the subject I want to talk about is, how some of us have gone through some things in our life that's hardships, and it's made an impact on us that is so deep, and it's something that we struggle with. It shows up in our lives in probably every area of our lives, and including in our relationships. So if you see me looking this way, is because I have some notes that I want to make sure that I discuss certain things. So like one of the things that I wanted to discuss is how we as people who are working on our relationships with God, it can feel really like a struggle to even believe that we are moving in the right direction. I know I have my times where I'm like, man, like, is God hearing my prayers? Or, does this mean like I'm moving anywhere because I've, spent time in the Word? But I have to choose to believe that God hears me. I have to choose to believe that the more time that I, spend with the Word and pray, that things are going to work out for me, because right now my situation is not good. And it can be hard sometimes to keep my faith up, but I have to, go back into myself and say, you know what? I know what God's word says, and I know he's not a man that he should lie. So I have to trust that even though things are not going the way I would like them to go right now, I have to remind myself that God is faithful and he will come through. It's not going to be on my timing. It's not going to look like the way what I want it to look, but he hears me. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about is that, like, how I had to learn how to spend time in reflection, reflecting on what things were troubling me. There was times where I had a lot of emotional turmoil, and I still do have some things I definitely need to work on. But without having self-reflection, then I wouldn't have been able to come to the realization of the things that was deeply troubling me. And those things that were troubling me is what was causing me to continue to be in like this self-sabotage cycle. And it's still a struggle to not revert back to feeling angry or feling broken. But spending time in self-reflection is important to do that, because if we don't, we just continue to hurt ourselves. So we have to think about what thoughts are toxic, what toxic thoughts are we having, what toxic behaviors and toxic habits and toxic environments are we putting ourselves in, because those are the things that's going to continue to cause us to cycle back into the same bad self-destruction. And no one can hurt us more than we can hurt ourselves, and it's unfortunate because a lot of times when we struggle with certain things, we may have experienced something when we were younger, or you can happen in your adulthood, and it could have impacted you so much that you become filled with so much fear or insecurity, or whatever the case might be that you're struggling with. So I say that to say we have to dig deep within us, and it's going to be scary, and it's going to be painful. And a lot of times, or some of the times, that having to dig deep is gonna probably be more painful as the experience that caused it, because we have to then go back into ourselves and try to address that issue, and not only that, but then address the pain or the hurt or whatever emotion that it might have caused or whatever impact it might have left on us, to be able to overcome it. So it might be a little bit more painful to go ahead and address it, but just know that in doing that self-reflection and addressing the issue is the only way we'll be able to find ourselves on the other side. Because, you know, pushing it down or pretending like it's not there or using humor to cover it up, yeah, that's temporary, and it's only going to just prolong the healing process and maybe even create more damage, because then you're living and you're having your experiences through this these different eyes that you now have because of that experience. And you might think, no, you know, it's not a big deal, but it really is a big deal. You may not really want to pay attention to it, but it is affecting certain parts of your life or certain parts of your character or your personality. So it's important to do that work. And it's good to have a therapist. A therapist is one that will help you maybe even see things from a different angle. But we don't want to get one that's going to help to feed our delusions or continue to, you know, aid us in the false reality that we created. And a lot of times we create a false reality to keep us safe. I know when I look back and I look at my you know, myself through my experiences in the past years, I feel like I did create a reality for myself where I was able to go back into that space to just keep myself safe, to keep my emotional state safe, even though I still was making a whole heap of terrible decisions. But it's what I knew, I guess, that just felt comfortable or familiar to me, so I went back into those behaviors. So in making sure that we're not continue to stay in those false reality that we created for ourselves during a time of trauma, right? If we are being honest, if you are being honest with yourself, then you'll see that you then realize that it's something that we need to work on. So the process is not going to be easy, but it needs to be done. It's a process that will take time, and along the way you may find yourself, you know, falling back towards certain things, but just remember that every time you take a step forward, that's such a huge and big thing, because you're not sitting where you were before. You took a step, and no matter how scary or how small it is a step. So don't be so hard on yourself because you didn't complete a certain task or you didn't go somewhere. Even if you got up and brushed your teeth, you know, because maybe you've been in depression for a while. If you get up and brush your teeth and you didn't do it yesterday, that's a big step, you know. And the next day you might get up and put on some clothes, or you might make yourself some breakfast or make up your bed, or you might go to the interview that you were too scared to do, or, you know, go out into an event because you're afraid of, you know, you've isolated yourself for a while. But those are steps that you're taking that you may have not taken before, and it's a big deal. That's a big deal, and you should applaud yourself for that and just keep going. And even if you know, end up stepping back, making a few steps back, don't let that discourage you from starting over. And it doesn't matter how many times you have to start over until you get it right. Don't let the devil, don't let these negative thoughts and these sabotaging thoughts make you feel like, oh, you messed up, or, you know, there you go again. Don't let it do that to you. It's going to be hard to push those thoughts out, but you can do it. And it doesn't matter how many times you have to start over. Every time you get knocked down, get back up, because you're not going to move anywhere. Things are not going to get any better if you don't get back up. And you know, sometimes it's really, really difficult to get back up, because you're like, I did this again. I've tried before and it didn't work. And I wanted to say, sometimes it would take longer to heal than it took to break you, right? So just know that your healing process may be longer than the time that it took for you to be broken. And it's unfortunate that is the case. For some of us, it may not take as long, but for some of us, like myself, I'm 40 years of damage, right? So saying that, it's been 4 years since I've been on my journey to healing, and I realized in that time pretty much like the extent of my damage, right? I realized in this 4 years of on my journey the extent of my damage, because a lot of this time that's gone by, you know, I used to only think that, oh, my troubles came from when I was, you know, a little girl. But it didn't, you know, it really didn't. When I look back, some things happened when I was a little girl, in teenage years, in my 20s, you know, and most of my 30s, pretty much I inflicted a lot of those other pains on myself. So if you can imagine, right, experiencing sexual abuse until the age of 18, and then inflicting that upon myself for another 20 years with the men that I then chose to involve myself with. Then experiencing within those same times experiencing physical abuse for 20 years, then inflicting physical abuse on myself for another 20 years, you know, because by me pretty much, you know, the things that I do with my life were just really reckless, in, you know, and then having emotional abuse. And, you know, I feel like that I experienced that all the way up until I was in my maybe 30, and then continue to inflict emotional abuse upon myself for another 7 years. So, and I won't forget about on top of me harming myself, self-harming myself, and on top of, you know, other people inflicting those pains or those blows, you know, to me. I can't forget about the pain I inflicted on other people while I was in the midst of my turmoil of, you know, confusion and pain and just hurt and anger, just a whole chaotic tornado of all sorts of things that I was unaware of some of the times, and then some of the times was not able to get the words to express myself, to say this is what's happening to me and I need help. You know, there's plenty of times that I wanted to express that I needed help, but I did not know how to do that. So in those times of pure turmoil, emotional turmoil, mental turmoil, I inflicted pain upon other people. And you know the saying that goes, hurt people hurt people. So pretty much that's what I did. So I have a whole heap of damage and brokenness that I've been carrying with me for years. And, you know, reminding you know, how can I say this? Some of those pains is when, you know, I shut down, because I remember, you know, a couple of the times when I was sexually abused, I spoke it, I said it to people, and then it was like, no, she's lying, or look what she's doing, so she wanted that, you know. So when you experience stuff like that, it kind of, for me, it made me, like, looking back, just felt like I was not to be believed. I felt as though I didn't have a voice, and it made me scared to like speak up. And you know, during that time I was getting physically abused and emotionally abused by those close to me. So I had to learn how to live in survival mode. I lived in survival mode for many, many years of my life and didn't realize I was living in survival mode until I started therapy 4 years back. And my anxiety was on pretty much a level 10 at that time. It was really, really bad. And I was going from job to job to job to job. I was going from place to place to place. I couldn't get the job. I can get the place, but I wasn't able to keep any of them because the amount of turmoil, when I tell you the amount of turmoil that I had going on inside of me, and still have to like pretty much work through still to this day, but I'm more aware of what I'm dealing with inside of myself for the most part. And most of the things that have impacted me throughout my life. When I tell you going to therapy has really helped me, because like I expressed in my other videos, the things that I was diagnosed with, I really would have never thought that I had these things. I just mostly put everything that I was experiencing on depression. Because I knew I was depressed, but when, I was told I had PTSD and, that I was bipolar, it started to make sense to me, because when I stopped and did some reflection, I'm like, I felt like those things that were inflicted upon me, I felt like they were blows to me. Like literally, I felt like I was in a ring and I was just getting pounded with blows in my, just to my heart, just to my self-esteem, to my soul, to an extent where I felt like my heart was literally bleeding, and so I had to face those things. And I hate that I have to go back to these moments in my life, but I have to. And there's times where I felt like I've been round in and out, trying to express it, but don't express it, tell some, but don't tell some, being angry when I'm speaking, but then trying to push it down at other times. And it was just like, okay, I'm here now and enough is enough. I want to live for myself now. I want to be able to experience my own experiences through my own eyes, through through my things that I create for myself. And I don't want any longer to consistently have to live through the eyes of my pain and my trauma. And it's hard to turn my mind off. It really is. It's hard to turn my mind off, because for me, living in this space for so many years of my life, where I felt like that's what kept me safe, but it really wasn't keeping me safe. I had all these walls up. I was being very self-destructive, having these harming thoughts and all these behaviors that just pretty much muddied my soul. It muddied my soul because I was so angry, and I felt like I was in such a lonely place. I felt abandoned. I felt rejected. I felt unheard. So I just did things that just pretty much like made it where it just made me look like I was the bad guy, like I was the problem, like I'm the troubled person. And yes, I have these troubles that I'm dealing with, but I didn't understand how I became the bad guy for people inflicting abuse upon me, and those abuse impacted me the way they impacted me. And if I'm behaving and acting out in certain ways and no one is looking into the root of what was happening, or why I was, carrying myself a certain way, then it's like no one really wanted to understand. They never really wanted to take a look at the situation for what it really was. It was easier to put it on me, lay the blame at my feet, and made me the problem, right? So I then made myself the problem. I took that up and made, so whatever I thought people were thinking of me, whatever I heard people saying about me, however people treated me, that's what I did with myself. I did it to myself. I thought of myself the way people would speak to me or talk or treat me, and everything. I just, I acted out. I acted out in so many ways. So in saying all of that, I just want you guys to know, like, self-reflection is really good, because you can then, if you're able to dig deep, no matter how painful this experience is going to be, you can come out on the other side. And I'm still climbing up my mountain, but one of these days, God's will, I will make it over. I will make it over, and I know the sunshine will be so bright over there. And I'm waiting for that day when I'm able to do that. So in being honest with ourselves, we now have to take the time to take accountability for who we are now. Yes, whatever happened to us, and we have to work on those things and work through those things. But who we are now, we have to take accountability for ourselves, so we can be able to make our own path and be our own best friends and create the life that we want for who we are right now. And that's working through all the toxic stuff, clearing it out as much as we can, so we can be a light to the world and be a light to ourselves the way God created us to be. Because I know for a fact I have some great traits and great qualities about me, and I'm pretty sure for certain that's what the devil wanted to stifle. There was a light in me. I always had a great personality, and the devil wanted to stifle that. And I'm sure God has a great purpose for me, and the devil sees who I am and wanted to stifle that. And he used all these people and all these experiences to try to, pretty much take me out. And I'm still standing here, to God's glory. I'm still standing here. So I want you to know that you can do the same. And you're in the fact that you're listening to this video, if you listen to it all the way through, then this was meant for you, and you're going to make it over this hurdle, over this mountain that may feel like it's never going to move, but it's going to move. God is great, and God is powerful, and he is over everything in our lives and everything in the whole entire world. And everyone in the whole entire world has to move according to how he sees fit. So I'm learning to trust that and know that God is capable and able. And one of these days, I'm going to be the person that I was created to be, and I'm working towards it, and I'm thankful for that. So I'm hoping and praying the same thing for you. No matter how much pain that you're going through, just keep making each step that you can make, and find a therapist, find someone a professional that can help you take the first step if you need to, because you're worth it. You are truly worth it. And no matter who sees you or who doesn't see you, make sure you see yourself. Make sure you see yourself. Look at yourself in the mirror, and even if you don't like what you see yourself for who you are, and continue to push through, because you are worth it. You are worth it. God created you for a reason. He didn't just put you here like, oh, I have a space over here that needs to be filled, so I'm just put this person there. No, you are someone to him. All right. And I'm going to leave you with this scripture, 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 12. It says, that is why I am suffering here in prison. Okay. But I am not ashamed of it, for I know the one in whom I trust, and I am sure that he is able to guard what I have entrusted to him until the day of his return. So our troubles and our battles that we have is like our prison. But don't be ashamed of it, because that's what the devil wants you to be, is ashamed of yourself, ashamed of your experiences, but we all in this, every single one of us, whether the rich or the poor, we all are experiencing some type of battle. And it's just how we learn how to maneuver through it and come out on the other side. So the shame means that you have a conscience, means that you have a soul, but do not let that be what weighs you down, because you know who you trust in. You trust in the Almighty God, the Redeemer, the Savior of the world, and he has all the power to heal you. And this part, I am sure that he's able to guard what I have entrusted to him. You have entrusted your soul, your mind, your heart, your emotions, your entire self to him, and he's going to guard that. Don't keep giving that to man, because men are flawed. We are all flawed, and we're all going to inflict pain upon one another at some point or another. So entrust yourself now to God, and he will make it certain that he will guard it with tender loving care. So I pray many blessings on your life, and I pray that you have a wonderful day, and that this word was a food to your soul. And God bless you. Shalom.